Welcome to Washington State's celebration of Women's History Month. I am joined by a panel of esteemed guests from Washington State today, and I'll introduce them each to you. My name is Jessamine Mcintyre. I'm a sideline reporter for Washington State football, honorary Coug since 2012, and proud to be here amongst this amazing panel of women. I'm going to start by introducing Mckay, Deputy Athletics Director and Senior Women Administrator here at Washington State. And as I introduce each one of you, tell me and tell everyone what you're most proud of this past year.
Thanks, Jessamine. I would say what I'm most proud of this past year is honestly all of the teamwork and resilience that not only our staff, but our student athletes have shown, and to be honest, everybody everywhere. So I'm super proud of, I think, resilience and creativity, and just the fact that we've had so many amazing accomplishments, even in spite of, so many significant challenges that we're all going through.
Absolutely something to be proud of. Next, I'll go to Jane LaRiviere, who is our head rowing coach. Jane, what are you most proud of this year?
I have to echo the resiliency, like our season has been, a little up and down. We get a few false negatives or false positives and things change and our personnel changes, but everybody just shows up at the boathouse and we get some work done. Last weekend when we were able to defeat Oregon State in less than perfect conditions, I think it just is a credit to the character of our team.
Thank you very much for that. Next, we'll go to Jessie Amalu, who is the Director of On-Campus Recruiting for football. Jessie, same question goes to you.
Kind of echoing both Ann and Jane, I think, especially with our staff kind of getting here for the first time last year. Now I've been here a year and kind of dealing, with COVID and everything that kind of just came all at once. That the staff and, especially the student athletes, again, have been great, just kind of honestly going with the flow and then just kind of showing up just to work, like Jane had said, and just really proud of them.
And finally, Shelby, Mckay, student athlete development and well-being, certainly an important role this past year. I'd ask the same question. What do you take pride in?
I would say I take pride in, similar to what all of these wonderful ladies have said, is the resiliency of our student athletes. But with me being here, similar to Jessie, just over a year now, just the family atmosphere that has been built, even though virtually, I still feel part of this great department and feel like I am a Coug. And also just in general from the social media and beyond of all the girl power, as I wear my girl power shirt that's been out here over the past month, and all the women really using their voices.
I'd like to just open it up with a broad question. What does Women's History Month mean to you? And Jane, I'll throw it out to you to start.
Well, part of me is still a little tiny bit sad that we have to have a month, because we shouldn't, we've been around a long time. And I just think that it's just sort of seeking attention. I think one of the things that's been in the media recently is, the U.S. women's soccer team and the pay disparity between the teams. And, those women on that team, they had to win and, make a way bigger impact before they got noticed. And I think that that's just sort of something that is, it's not really understandable, but it's something that's a reality. And I just applaud all of the people that, championship performances doesn't erase inequity. And I think we all have to keep that in mind, because it's easy to just sort of get set in your ways and your little cog is successful, but what's happening in the rest of the world?
Certainly. Jessie, you're on the younger end of your career. You just started out at Washington State. Shelby as well. I'd love for you to jump in on this topic. Have you seen changes as your career is starting off in that sense?
Particularly for football, I would say, first of all, there never used to be a recruiting department. That was really not a thing. Now it's a super crucial part to each football staff. And if you do look around at a lot of schools, most of the people in my position are females. And I think just working in football, I kind of grew up around it. And having female on a football staff is like 100% necessary, just because, you know, it is a men's sport and, you know, it's another outlook. It's another person there for them to have, especially working in recruiting. You know, you're dealing with high school kids, and a lot of the times, you know, their biggest influence is their mom or is a sister, is an aunt, a grandma. I think it's very comforting for them as a female, seeing another female on a football staff and someone there can take care of their son who they can talk to about anything, just here to help. But yeah, definitely changes being made. I've for sure, specifically with football, have been seeing lots of more female hired on to teams, which makes me happy. Just kind of, you know, helping along with that.
Shelby, would you agree with that? I see you nodding.
Yeah, definitely. I was trying to think of just all the women that have been added to more leadership roles in athletic departments across the nation. It's a valuable thing to watch, to actually see someone in the shoes that I could fill one day. And it's really inspiring, and to know that there's allies out there that are helping us get to those places and empowering us too.
Certainly an ally you have right here in Ann Mckay. And when you look at Women's History Month, what would you say it means to you?
I really focus on it being a celebration. I think of a lot of accomplishments that many may not know about. I think it's a great opportunity to kind of educate and inspire people on women that have, you know, not only come before us, but continue to work among us, you know? And so I just think it's a great opportunity to celebrate and just, you know, sing the praises of a lot of great accomplishments and things that maybe, you know, aren't generally well known, or things that people wouldn't otherwise, you know, take time to digest and take in, you know, without Women's History Month. So I look at it as a chance to maybe celebrate a lot of accomplishments that are lesser known, but that should be.
This is Women's History Month, and we're talking about across all spectrums, and both Shelby and Jessie had touched on it a bit. I'll toss it back to Jane, but what does it mean to be a woman in sports these days? Because all five of us are talking about that realm in various different degrees. What does it mean to be a woman in sports for you?
Well, to be very honest, when I was younger, I didn't think about it. I came from a very athletic family, and my mother was a coach, and granted different sports, but you know, I was very, like, when I look back, I'm just so lucky that I got raised by a couple of parents who were super into athletics, and they thought that I could do everything. And I, you know, gained a lot of my self-confidence, you know, honestly, by being stronger than some of the boys that I competed against. I view it as a journey of, you know, like the student athletes come here when they're freshmen, and they are however they are. And then you hope to sort of impart a little bit of the confidence and the capability of thriving and, you know, achieving their goals and doing all those things that they might not otherwise have had the opportunity unless they were put in this situation of competing and making themselves better, and having the entire athletic department looking after them and focused on how to make them better.
Now, unfortunately, we all know that there are several challenges that we face in male-dominated fields, of which we are all involved. Shelby, I'm going to start with you. What challenges have you faced when it comes to being in a male-dominated field?
Yeah, as I was like reflecting on just working in sports as a woman, I was thinking back to when I first walked into the sports world in terms of professional experiences. And my first supervisor was a woman. So from then on, it was always women, until honestly now is the first male supervisor I've had in college athletics. So it's kind of surreal to think that like I had that path paved, and that's not normal for a lot of situations. But I think as I've grown in this field, I recognize the challenges even more, because when we're put in more leadership roles or put into the room that we should be, we might be the only ones in the room as women. So having the challenge of speaking up and having the confidence has been probably the biggest challenge, is finding that confidence within myself to speak my mind, give my voice, speak up for our student athletes, give my opinion, and not be afraid that no one will listen or value that. So over time, it's slowly being built in these new situations. And as we keep feeling more empowered by the others in the room, that challenge starts to get a little bit smaller, but I think that's the biggest thing, is having that confidence and being strategic with your language and knowing that you're welcome in that space.
Of the many women that I've spoken to throughout this month, that is the most relatable and common answer that I've heard. Jessie, what are some of the challenges you face, if not the same, and could you build upon that?
I think, what it comes down to, kind of with Shelby, I've always had men supervisors just working in football. I'm the only daughter in my family. I have 4 brothers, so I've literally always been surrounded by guys my whole life. And it just, I can just say I've just been super grateful for all the staffs I've been on, just making me feel comfortable, making me feel heard. But it's been just so awesome being a part of a staff. And when you're with, in a room full of coaches and men coaches even, and they're letting your voice be heard. I can just say it's really been grateful being around that kind of staffs, and being in that comfortable setting.
And you started your career, your illustrious career, a while before we had as many pathways through, as I would say, as much support as we are now seeing as the years go on, as things are hopefully continue to get better. What were some challenges you faced throughout your career getting all the way to where you are now?
I will say I feel very fortunate to have worked with a lot of really supportive people of, young professionals that were up and coming, male and female, but they probably recognized maybe even before I did, because I think partly probably what we all have in common is we have a little bit of a driven, fearless kind of component to us. Do you know what I mean? I think all of the folks, on the screen today, and I feel like it almost was, I had a very helpful kind of first experience in, my full-time job life of, people who took me seriously and gave me a lot of opportunity and a lot of, opportunities to grow and to be strong. And then it was almost as if they were prepping me in some ways to say, it's not like this everywhere though, and because I was so fortunate as a new professional that I didn't know any better. But I remember I interviewed for a job once, which is one of the only times in my absolute professional life that I ever was treated stereotypically like a female in athletics. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, like this is what I've been really fortunate to not have been that exposed to, quite frankly, and I didn't like it, I'll be honest, and immediately withdrew from the position because I thought I could never work in this type of environment or with this type of, people that didn't appreciate professionals of all ages, all genders, all, everything, just that, I just did not feel it wasn't a good culture. It wasn't a good working environment. And so I think what I've seen probably change the most is all of the things that, young women feel like they can do, whether it's, participating in athletics, whether it's being in any field they want to be in, and just really growing and not feeling like you have to think of yourself as a particular gender in a field, but really working to make yourself as a respected, capable professional. And so I think that's probably what I've learned over time is just, how can I help empower those people that want to work in college athletics or whatever field they want to work. And if they're, young women that I can help inspire because I'm a woman in the field, or, if they're young men and I can help inspire them by making them understand what a tremendous industry it is, like it helps me realize that everybody needs maybe a little bit different type of inspiration. And I didn't realize I needed it in a way that I didn't realize, I would experience at some point in time. But those folks that took me under their wing had me ready, and I didn't even kind of know it at the time.
I was fortunate you had that kind of early mentorship, which I'm sure we would all be grateful to have had if we didn't. Jane, I'm going to throw that same question over to you. What challenges have you faced, and are there challenges you still face in your career?
To be perfectly frank, I think I owe a lot, and I think we all owe a lot to Marcia Sainholtz, because she retired in 2007, I believe. And I was working in another Pac-12 institution for 8 years before I came here. And even when I came on my first job interview, I was like, what? We're allowed to train in the same gym? We have our own strength and conditioning coach. We like, this was already like in 2000, it was a utopia place because of her. And I have a hard time complaining about much because I already was in, the rowing, the weight strength and conditioning staff would say to us in my previous place, is rowing a varsity sport? Like, are the women, are you supposed to be here? Like, and it was like a cubicle that we worked in. It was kind of like, I had a little flashback to where I was before. And I'm sure it's different now. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but when all the NCAA and the comparisons between weight rooms, I was just like, oh, that's exactly what it was like 20 years ago in a different place. Every time there's been an opportunity to get a GA, Washington State has stepped up. So we're fully funded and we have full staffs, and that's not necessarily the case for all of the rowing teams in the Pac-12. So like, sometimes you have to know how lucky you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's great recognition. Absolutely. I can definitely attest to that in my own career, knowing when I've been lucky, but only in hindsight, running into different experiences. Jessie, I'm going to send my next question your way. I'd like to know who has inspired you throughout your career, and this doesn't necessarily have to be a woman. You're a woman in sports, but who has inspired you to grow your career?
Definitely probably have to point back to my dad. Like Jane, I'm a coach's kid. He coaches as well. I just love it and the atmosphere and being around it. Not only that, but being around student athletes and wanting to be in athletics. And just getting that feel for that he, I can always look to him, ask him questions, ask him for advice. He has definitely helped with my networking and meeting new people, staff members alike. And so definitely I would have to probably say my dad has been kind of my biggest inspiration with that.
My dad's one for me as well. Shelby, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, I would say definitely my mother. She's definitely one who pushes me to be greater and do more things. I call her pretty much every day to kind of debrief my day, just kind of get anything off my chest. But in terms of the sports world, I would just say like any woman above me, really, anyone who's taken the time to meet with me one-on-one and just hear what their experiences are, hear them talk, from the women in this room. And I remember like anytime I meet with Anne, I walk away with something like motivational without her probably even knowing. And even looking back to this one-on-one conversation with Jane, it was like, oh, light bulb, didn't think of that way. And it keeps me going to the next thing. So there's been so many women in this field that really have inspired me to keep me in this field too, because it's not easy to work in college athletics as a woman.
Well, Anne, I am going to ask you this next question. Obviously, you're inspiring people in this room right now, but who do you hope to inspire outside of this group, and how do you do it? I know that you probably, as Shelby mentioned, don't even realize it when you're doing it, but how would you like to if you could?
I think as cliche as it's going to sound, like I always hope I can be an inspiration, not only for any of our staff, but our student athletes, when we have exit interviews and we talk with our student athletes about what their plans are and what could we do better, or what did they really enjoy from their experience, et cetera. Like the biggest thing I just want them to understand is that they can do anything they set their mind to, and they don't have to have that answer today or tomorrow. And that's okay. Like the athletes are such, driven, focused, goal oriented, like, oh my gosh, if I don't know right now what I'm going to do in my 3, 5 year and 10-year plan, and I try to just basically hopefully let them know, when I went to college, I was not going to college for sport management. I was, going in kind of a different direction. And by sheer dumb luck, I took a 3-credit elective class in government regulation in sport. And it may not sound fascinating to everybody, but for me, it was such a cool class. And I thought, that's what I want to do. And I want to work at the college level, and I want to work with student athletes, and I want to be part of people doing something they love. And so I think that would be the biggest thing. I would just hope, for student athletes or staff that I would, both let them know that they're part of something really special and we care about them.
And Jane, you're a coach. You have direct influence over your student athletes every single day that you're with them. How do you hope to inspire them and those outside of your program as well?
Well, my number one is my 17-year-old daughter. And I think it's been really good because I'm a single mom for her to see how that works and how it's possible, it's everybody's choice, right? And so I think that has been, I think that's been positive at a number of different levels. But I also think that, every single team, every single member of the team for the last 17 odd years, they've seen me pregnant, they've seen me have a child, they've seen me in the midst of being a mom and being a coach. And I don't even know what it means, but I do know that it's positive at some level to have lots of people understand that it's possible. Because I think, sometimes I worry about like the, retention of women coaches because of this sort of thing. And, I think it partially is me because I'm just like, well, I can only be as good as I can be, right? Like I didn't think I had to be perfect. And I think there's a lot of people that think when they become moms, they have to be different or they have to be better, but really they just have to be themselves. And if they're happy in what they're doing, they're going to be a really great mom. And it doesn't have to, you don't need a ton of money. You don't need all the bells and whistles that people think that you need. You don't. You need love and you need a little bit of stability.
That's really special. And thank you for sharing that. One final question for each of you. I just want to know what kind of advice you'd give to women out there who might be embarking on their careers, who might be thinking about embarking on a career in sports in particular, just through your experience so far, because they're obviously vast and varied. Jessie, I'll start with you. What advice would you give to any woman of any age right now as it comes to being a woman in sports?
First and foremost, just to get to know as many people as you can. I'm sure, as we all know, kind of with college athletics in the sports world, it really, kind of comes down to who you know, and kind of growing your network and building on those relationships firsthand. And especially for any female student athletes, just to take advantage of the resources that you have. People like Shelby, your coaches, people that, you let them know this is what I want to do. This is my interests, and they can help you here. That's what they're here for. So those two things I'd probably say.
Shelby, I'll go to you next.
I would say to first find a mentor, one or two. It can be a woman, it could be a man, just someone who you can talk things through with, help you point yourself in the right direction. But then also a few sponsors, and by sponsors, I mean people who will sing you to the mountain praises and spread your name to anyone and everyone who's looking for someone in this field. But then also speaking into existence what you want to be and when you want to do it, and set your goals and let people know what your goals are.
Anne?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be don't be afraid to make mistakes. I mean, honestly, there are opportunities for growth. And you'll never know how much you can grow, unless you're willing to go through some of those pitfalls too. And I just think it's important to take those opportunities to grow and not be afraid to make mistakes.
I think find your passion and work really, really hard, and don't take no for an answer. Like if you're really good, somebody's going to hear you. Like it's just, but you can't think about, like, I actually think that gender isn't what we should be thinking about. It's just, how do we be passionate and good and exceptional at our jobs and know when to pick a fight.
Yes.
You don't have to pick every single fight. That's for sure.
Find the hill to die on, right?
Yeah.
Make sure it's really big.
Yeah.
That's great advice. And I do hope that we are getting closer and closer to a point in all of our careers and future careers for those out there who are studying now and dreaming towards the future where gender is not an issue. But in this month, we are celebrating women's history. I can't thank you all enough for your time. I feel honored to be in your presence and really looking forward to being back over there on Washington State's campus, hopefully in the fall, and we'll all get to celebrate the Cougs together. Thank you, ladies.